learned that song like 2 days before I performed it live. Oh my gosh, and I about puked every time I performed on the show. It was just...
Darci Lynne made Simon Cowell's jaw literally drop and had the whole world rooting for her. A teenager with the voice of an angel.
Well, of course I love her, but she drives me crazy.
Oscar, you worry too much. You know, sometimes you just gotta let the good times roll.
The humor of a seasoned comic and puppetry skills that could rival any Broadway performer. She wasn't just good, she was unforgettable. But here's the thing nobody ever tells you. Behind that perfect smile, those standing ovations, and all that confetti, there's a story so raw, so quietly heartbreaking, you'll wonder how she ever managed to keep performing with the weight she was carrying. Stick with me till the very end. The truth hits hard, and it deserves to be heard. Come along, Darci Lynne wins AGT, but faces overwhelming fame. Darci Lynne's journey into the hearts of millions began in the most unexpected and enchanting way. It was May 30th, 2017, just another day for most people, but not for Darci. That day marked a turning point in her young life that would change everything she thought she knew about childhood, fame, and dreams.
Yes, well, school already started. I've missed 3 weeks, so I'll have to catch up.
Stepping onto the America's Got Talent stage with nothing but her nerves, her hopes, and a pink puppet named Petunia, the 12-year-old Oklahoma girl was about to deliver something unforgettable. She chose the song Summertime from Porgy and Bess, a classic, a challenging number by any standard, and sang it through her puppet with such poise and vocal strength that even the seasoned judges sat there wide-eyed. Was it real? Was this young girl really throwing her voice while hitting those notes with such clarity and soul? People in the audience literally gasped. It was the kind of moment that makes your skin tingle. You could feel something shift in the room, and then it happened. Mel B, visibly moved, stood up, slammed the golden buzzer with purpose, and showered Darci in golden confetti. That one moment of impact, that resounding buzz, didn't just send Darci to the live shows, it sent her life into overdrive. Within just 30 hours, her audition became the most viewed video in AGT history. Just imagine that. In a little more than a day, a middle schooler from Oklahoma had become a global sensation.
Actually crowned the winner of America's Got Talent.
I don't know, I'm just really in shock right now.
Darci, still riding the emotional high from the performance, found herself thrust into a whirlwind. But as amazing as that moment was, it was only the start of something much bigger, something more complex than anyone could have predicted. She came on stage with a puppet, a big smile, and a voice no one saw coming. Darci Lynne wasn't just a talented ventriloquist, she was America's sweetheart.
America spoke loud and clear. There were 52 million!
But what happened to her after the lights faded? Behind the standing ovations and golden confetti, Darci faced challenges that no one saw coming. What went wrong? Where did things take a painful turn? If you've ever wondered what fame does to someone so young, this story will open your eyes. Make sure you stay till the end, because the full story is more emotional and more inspiring than you think. As the competition moved forward, Darci continued to dazzle. She introduced new puppet characters, Oscar the Shy Mouse and Edna Doorknocker, a feisty old lady with a crush on Simon Cowell, and proved that her talents were no fluke. Her performances weren't just technically impressive, they were deeply entertaining and emotionally connective.
Okay, Oscar. Exactly which one of us got the golden buzzer? Petunia!
By the time she sang "With a Little Help from My Friends" for her final performance, viewers had already fallen in love with her. And when the results came in on September 20th, 2017, it was official. Darci Lynne was the winner of America's Got Talent Season 12. Not just any winner either. She had received the most votes ever for an AGT finale. That's history-making stuff.
The winner of the $1 million, Darci Lynne!
But here's the thing. Fame is rarely a one-way ticket to happiness, especially when it arrives so quickly, and especially for someone so young. The level of attention Darci began receiving was staggering. Within weeks, she had amassed millions of followers across social media. Interviews, photo shoots, guest appearances, it all came flooding in. Suddenly, she was on Ellen DeGeneres' show, performing alongside stars like Terry Fator and Pentatonix. What was originally planned as a modest 5-city tour suddenly ballooned into a 52-venue nationwide spectacle. Her first major solo show sold out in 6 minutes. Yes, 6 minutes.
And she gave me tips, and I just practiced in my mirror, and it stuck.
Wow, that's very impressive.
That's not just popularity, that's pandemonium. And yet, even in the middle of all that success, Darci was trying her best to stay grounded. She still had school to think about, friends to see, and a childhood to somehow hold on to. But how do you go back to algebra homework and cafeteria lunches when you've just been on national television in front of 10 million people? That was the dilemma, the part no one prepares you for. Darci returned to Deer Creek Middle School, hoping to find some sense of normalcy. But what she found instead was a new kind of pressure. She once shared in an interview that it was a little crazy going back. She explained how 8th grade came with new students, and many of them weren't just curious. They were starstruck. They're all like, "Oh my gosh, Darci Lynne," she said, half smiling. That kind of attention, day in and day out, can weigh heavily on anyone, let alone a young girl who's just trying to grow up. And it wasn't just her. Her brother Nate, who had never asked for fame, found himself caught in the crossfire. Darci once mentioned how he would come home frustrated, constantly fielding questions about his sister, rather than getting to talk about his own life. Can you imagine that? Being a teenager, trying to build your identity, while everyone around you only wants to know about your sibling? Fame, it seemed, wasn't just Darci's burden, it was spilling over into her family too.
Well, it's going to be so much fun. It's definitely like a family night, family day show.
To manage everything, Darci and her team made a compromise. She would tour on weekends and holidays, so she wouldn't miss too much school. On paper, that sounds like a smart solution. But what happens when your weekends are packed with travel, sound checks, performances, and meet and greets? And then your weekdays are filled with math tests, locker gossip, and kids begging you for selfies? That balance is not easy. It's exhausting. And slowly, that blurry line between Darci's private life and her public persona began to wear thin.
It gets really drunk. People wanted to see my brain activity because I'm thinking of like 10 different things, but...
Where did the girl end and the performer begin? Could she still be a kid while being a star? Those are tough questions, ones even adults struggle to answer. And so, while Darci Lynne's story is one of immense talent and unprecedented success, it is also a story about the hidden costs of fame, especially when it arrives too soon. It's about what happens after the golden confetti falls, when the lights dim and you still have homework due the next day. It's a reminder that even the brightest stars can find it difficult to shine when they're not given enough space to simply be human. Darci battles anxiety and isolation behind the spotlight. Behind the bright lights, viral applause, and the sweet illusion of a dream-come-true story, Darci Lynne's journey was far more complicated than anyone watching from their living room could have imagined. Most people saw a confident, bubbly ventriloquist with a stunning voice and charm far beyond her years. But behind that glowing smile was a young girl quietly battling inner storms that fame only made louder. You know how people often assume that being famous as a kid is just one big ride of happiness and privilege? Well, Darci's story reminds us that sometimes the spotlight doesn't just illuminate talent. It also exposes the pressure, fear, and expectations that come with it. From the very beginning, long before Darci ever stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, there were signs that the road ahead might be tougher for her than it looked. People who knew her as a child would often describe her as painfully shy. Singing in front of others, that felt like a mountain she couldn't climb. Her parents, noticing how deeply reserved she was, knew something had to change if she was ever going to embrace her talent. So they gently nudged her into the world of pageantry, not for the glitz, but for the hope that it might help her open up. They entered her into the International Cinderella Scholarship Program, hoping it would ease her fear of performing and build her confidence. And while it did help her take those first brave steps, it didn't erase the core of who she was, a girl who felt deeply and worried often. Everything changed, almost overnight, when she won America's Got Talent at just 12 years old.
Well, it was one of my big dreams. But also I would really like to keep ventriloquism alive because it's not common, you know?
One minute she was a small-town girl with a puppet, the next she was a national treasure. But fame, as it turns out, doesn't give you time to adjust. Suddenly, she was expected to be ready, to perform, to smile, to carry the weight of expectations most adults would crumble under. And she's admitted this herself. I was just 12 years old and trying to process everything that was happening. It was a lot to handle all at once. Can you imagine that kind of whirlwind? One day you're doing homework, the next you're being interviewed by national media, flying across the country and reading comments about yourself from strangers online. Even as millions adored her and her shows sold out, Darci battled something few could see: doubt. Not the "what should I wear today" kind, but the kind that whispers, maybe you're not good enough, even when the world is clapping. She would sometimes wonder if it had all just been a fluke. What if it was just luck? What if I'm not really as good as people think I am? She would think. That creeping imposter syndrome didn't vanish with every encore or fan letter. It lingered, quietly challenging her worth, even as her career soared. It's the kind of thing that fame rarely talks about, that behind every standing ovation, there might be a heart quietly trembling. Trying to balance that soaring fame with a normal teenage life proved to be one of her biggest challenges. While other kids her age were worrying about who to sit with at lunch or what to wear to the school dance, Darci was on planes, stages, and red carpets. And while that might sound exciting, and sure, parts of it were, there was a growing longing inside her for just a slice of normalcy. Some days I just wanted to be a normal kid again, she shared. I missed hanging out with my friends, going to school dances, and just living a regular life. Fame had opened doors, but it had also quietly shut others. Was it worth it? That's a question she probably wrestled with more than once. And then there was the pressure to always be on, always be the smiling, sweet girl everyone adored on AGT. Darci once admitted she felt like she had to live up to that image all the time. I felt like I always had to be the happy, perfect girl that everyone fell in love with on AGT, she said. But how do you always stay perfect? When real life is messy, emotions are complicated, and you're still growing up? It's no wonder that kind of expectation started affecting her mental health. She became hyper-aware of how she looked, what she said, and what others might think. I was constantly worried about what people thought of me and that I didn't want to make any mistakes or disappoint my fans, she confessed. Imagine living with that constant mental weight while still trying to just be a teenager. Eventually, even school, something that should have been a stable part of her life, became too difficult to maintain the traditional way. Touring, performing, filming, it all meant missing huge chunks of class time. I went to public school all last year, and it was really tough, she explained. It was rough having to miss so much work and having to cram all of it in when I got back off touring. The demands of her career didn't match up with the structure of a regular school schedule. So, after much thought and probably a lot of back and forth, she made the tough decision to transition to homeschooling in 8th grade. It was a hard decision to make, but I think it's the best way to go, she said. That choice, though difficult, allowed her the flexibility she desperately needed, both professionally and emotionally. Throughout all of these challenges, There was one constant in Darci's life: her family. Her parents, recognizing how much pressure she was under, made sacrifices to be by her side. They quit their jobs to support her full-time, not just as managers of her schedule, but as her emotional safety net. "My parents have kept me extremely grounded," she noted. "In a world that can so easily chew up and spit out young stars, that kind of unconditional support may have been what kept her steady." In the end, Darci Lynne's story isn't just about a girl with a puppet and a golden buzzer moment. It's about what happens when talent collides with pressure, and how hard it can be to stay true to yourself when the world insists on who it wants you to be. Her journey reminds us that behind every bright stage light, there might be someone quietly struggling to stay whole. Someone who, despite all the fame and success, just wants to feel like a kid again. So the next time someone says, "She's got it all," maybe it's worth asking, at what cost? And that brings us to a heartbreaking reality that fans have started noticing and speaking out about. Darci's health and emotional toll spark public concern. Stay right here, because what comes next might truly change the way you see her forever. Darci's health and emotional toll spark public concern.
Please welcome the reigning AGT champion, 13-year-old Darci Lynne Farmer, along with Katie, the yodeling cowgirl.
As Darci Lynne's star kept rising, something much quieter and far more worrying was unfolding behind the scenes. The same teenager who once lit up the stage with boundless energy and a beaming smile was starting to show signs that all wasn't well. People who had followed her since her early days on America's Got Talent began to notice changes. Not dramatic at first, but enough to spark murmurs. Was it just growing pains, or was something deeper going on? At first, it was little things. Viewers pointed out how Darci seemed a bit more subdued in interviews. Her once bright and bubbly demeanor felt slightly dulled, like a dimmer switch had been turned down without anyone noticing. Then came the tired eyes, the noticeably strained smile, and the rare but significant missed appearances. On social media, concerned fans began piecing things together. Comments flooded in. "She looks exhausted. Is she okay?" And "Darci doesn't seem like herself lately." Of course, the internet being what it is, speculation grew legs fast. Rumors of illness and burnout started circulating, with fans building entire theories based on a single blurry photo or a cancelled show. Could the spotlight that had once made her shine now be burning her out? Away from the cameras, the reality was even more complex. Darci was no longer just the sweet girl with a puppet. She had become a national sensation with a calendar full of performances, interviews, and rehearsals. The pressure was relentless. According to those close to her, Darci had begun experiencing symptoms that were impossible to ignore. Chronic fatigue started creeping in, and soon it wasn't just a matter of being tired, it was feeling drained down to the bone. She reportedly confided in close friends that there were mornings she simply couldn't get out of bed. Her body weighed down by exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. Headaches became frequent. Nights were restless. Her voice, her greatest tool, felt strained, overused, and worn thin from constant performing. But the toll wasn't just physical. Emotionally, Darci found herself sinking. Panic attacks began hitting her more often, and they didn't come with warnings. Imagine the terror of having your chest tighten and your breath shorten right before stepping on stage in front of thousands. She felt trapped, caught between the demands of fame and the quiet screams of a body and mind begging for rest. The very gift that had helped her come out of her shell. The puppets that once brought her so much comfort.
Well, guys, here we are in the finals of America's Got Talent. How are you feeling?
Now felt like a heavy weight she had to carry everywhere she went. In the midst of all this, her family stepped up in a big way. Her parents, always protective, knew it was time to make a change. They decided to pull her back, to shelter her as best they could from the noise of the internet and the pressures of an industry that can be ruthless even to adults. let alone a teenage girl. They scaled down her social media activity, turning down countless interview requests and stepping in to create a buffer zone around her. It wasn't about hiding her, it was about preserving her. As her mother reportedly explained, their only goal was to put their daughter's well-being before the demands of public life. And in doing that, they also brought in professionals, therapists, counselors, and doctors to help guide Darci through what was arguably the most difficult stretch of her young career. So, what happens when the applause fades and the lights dim? For Darci Lynne, the answer was a period of necessary retreat, reflection, and healing. While fans may have missed seeing her as often, those closest to her knew it was time to prioritize something far more important than any performance: her health and happiness. After all, isn't that what truly matters in the end? When the curtain falls, when the applause fades, what truly matters is peace of mind, healing, and being surrounded by love. And in Darci's case, that brave choice led to something even more beautiful than any show-stopping act: a quiet reinvention, a rediscovery of self, and an inspiring transformation that continues to touch hearts today. So stick around, because what comes next isn't just a new chapter. It's the kind of turning point that might just move you too. Darci reinvents herself and inspires others. Darci Lynne's story isn't just a sweet tale about a talented girl and her puppet. It's something much deeper. It's about the quiet strength it takes to grow up under the spotlight, the confusion of not knowing who you are when the world already thinks it does, and the brave decision to reinvent yourself even when everyone expects you to stay the same. Remember when Darci Lynne first stunned the world with her big voice and even bigger charisma at just 12 years old? She and her puppet Petunia became instant sensations, capturing hearts on America's Got Talent and reminding people what raw, unfiltered joy looked like.
We're so happy to be back on this stage, right, Petunia? Yeah.
But what happens when the child grows up and starts wondering if there's more to her than just what people saw back then? Fast forward to 2024, and Darci, now 19, did something that turned heads and raised eyebrows. She came back to the AGT stage.
Well, I mean, when I was on AGT, everyone would always ask me, Darci, what are you gonna do with the $1 million if you win it?
Not as the little girl with the puppet, but as a young woman with something entirely different to say. Was she nervous? Absolutely. In fact, before her performance on America's Got Talent Fantasy League, she admitted, "I feel like I have to live up to what I did when I was 12, but I just don't want to be put into a box." That one sentence said so much, didn't it? Because how many people can relate to feeling trapped by the expectations others put on them? Darci took a big risk, stepping out with a bold and unexpected performance of "I've Got the Music in Me," and for a moment, she set Petunia down. Instead, she picked up a guitar and showed the world she wasn't just a ventriloquist anymore. She was an artist in her own right, ready to carve out a new space for herself. But where did all this creative fire come from? Interestingly, it started during a quiet and uncertain time, the pandemic. Like many others, Darci found herself stuck at home, unsure of what to do next. She later shared, "I had not been home for a couple of years, and I didn't know what to do with myself." Can you imagine how disorienting that must have felt for someone who had spent most of her adolescence on stage or in front of cameras? But instead of letting the stillness eat away at her, she leaned into it. She taught herself how to write music, just like that. No big announcements, no press coverage, just a young woman alone in her room, exploring what else she could be. Isn't there something beautiful about that? That exploration led her into new creative territory. Darci started working with Oklahoma musicians Maggie McClure and Shane Henry, and together they brought to life her debut single, "Push Our Luck," which dropped on February 5th, 2024. The song is light, catchy, and full of the butterflies and nervous energy that come with new love. Darci described it as drawing from those first-time feelings when you're out on a date. It's honest, it's relatable, and it sounds like it came from someone who isn't pretending to be anyone but herself. Her creativity didn't stop there. Darci tried her hand at acting too, and in 2022, she co-starred in the Netflix film A Cowgirl's Song. It was a natural fit, after all. She's from Oklahoma, and the role let her blend her love of music and performance in a fresh way. Then, she dipped her toes into producing, crafting the music video for Push Our Luck, which ended up winning Best Music Video 2024 from the Los Angeles Film Awards. That's right, Darci wasn't just the face of her music. She was behind the scenes shaping its entire vision. And she's not slowing down. More recently, she released a soulful pop track titled Someone Wake Me Up, showing a new side of her voice, deeper, richer, more emotional.
Well, the reason I do my performing is always to make people happy and smile.
She's also hard at work developing a brand new touring show for 2025, something that blends all her talents: singing, songwriting, storytelling, and yes, ventriloquism, but on her terms. She's no longer just the girl with a puppet. She's a young woman with a story to tell and the voice to tell it in whatever way she chooses.
Is this even happening to me? I mean, I remember going to bed that night and just saying my life is literally never gonna be the same.
So, what does Darci Lynne's journey teach us? That it's okay to grow, that it's okay to change, and most importantly, that it's okay to take risks, even when people want you to stay exactly as you were. Because sometimes, the best version of yourself isn't the one everyone remembers. It's the one you're becoming. And Darci? She's doing exactly that, stepping into a new chapter, not just as a performer, but as someone using her voice and platform.
Well, I first saw ventriloquism when I was at my church, and I think I was like 5.
For something so much bigger than ventriloquism or viral fame. So don't blink, don't click away, because what she's doing next, especially for children and mental health causes, it might just be the most powerful part of her story yet. Darci uses platform to support children and mental health causes. Beyond the glittering stage lights and the thunderous applause of sold-out arenas, Darci Lynne has been quietly proving that her heart is just as big as her talent. While many may know her as the ventriloquism prodigy who stunned the world on America's Got Talent, there's a whole other side to her that doesn't get nearly as much attention, but absolutely should. It's the part of her that chooses to use her platform not just to entertain, but to heal, uplift, and make a difference where it matters most. At just a young age, Darci has already begun weaving her name into spaces where compassion meets creativity. One particular day stands out in her journey, when she visited the Seacrest Studios inside the Children's Hospital of Orange County. With her beloved puppets, Petunia and Oscar, in tow, she lit up the room not with spotlights or special effects, but with something far more powerful: kindness and connection. For the children there, many of whom had been battling illnesses far beyond their years, Darci's performance wasn't just a fun break. It was a moment of joy, a slice of normalcy, and a reminder that someone out there cared deeply. Can you imagine what that must have meant to those kids, even just for a few minutes? And that's not where it stops. Darci didn't just leave that hospital and move on to the next show. Instead, she kept showing up in different ways, for different causes. She lent her voice and support to Horses for Mental Health, an organization that uses equine therapy to help people struggling with mental wellness. Standing alongside actor Dennis Quaid and others, she joined a campaign that may not have grabbed major headlines, but certainly captured hearts. During her involvement, she shared her gratitude for being part of something so important, saying she was thankful to highlight the incredible ways horses can support our mental well-being. It wasn't just a soundbite, it was a reflection of someone who gets it. Now, one might wonder, What drives someone so young to be so aware, so intentional about lifting others up? Could it be that her own journey through sudden fame, constant scrutiny, and the pressure of growing up in the public eye gave her a deeper understanding of what emotional struggles really look like? After all, being famous doesn't shield anyone from anxiety or self-doubt. It can actually magnify those feelings. And maybe that's why Darci's support for mental health initiatives feels so personal. She's not just a celebrity ambassador lending her face to a cause. She's someone who knows what it feels like to need a little extra support. Darci's actions show us that influence isn't always about followers or trending clips. Sometimes it's about quietly showing up in places where people are hurting and doing something, anything, to remind them they matter. Whether she's on stage, pulling laughs from a puppet, or off stage standing beside those battling mental health challenges, she carries a rare kind of empathy that speaks volumes. And really, isn't that the kind of influence the world needs more of? Someone who uses their spotlight not to shine brighter, but to guide others out of the dark. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.